Hello and welcome to Europa Universalis 4, and welcome to Beginning Anew. This will be an ongoing series where I analyze countries and discuss some tactics and strategies that you can use to become a world power and dominate the international stage. I'm always happy to receive more requests as to which country I should review next, but for now, let us begin anew. Today's nation, England. England is one of the majors in the European theatre, along with France, Castile, Austria, and so on. England is, of course, Western. They are a kingdom rank, Catholic, although this can change quite rapidly when the Reformation comes across. We start with King Henry VI of Lancaster, 000, which will be leading into an event later on, which I can discuss then. We have 23 provinces, 291 development, and a fort level of 13, which is, well, scattered around. Start off with some lands in the European mainland, mostly around France and Burgundy, along with Navarra at the bottom as well. English ideas, let's have a look at these. The starting additions are morale of navies plus 20% and embargo efficiency plus 33%. As you can already tell, Britannia rules the seas and trade. Royal Navy, heavy ship combat ability plus 10%, and a yearly Navy tradition of plus 0.25, so you should not have any necessarily big troubles in controlling English Channel. The Etheldam Ornis, I don't know how to pronounce that, but the national tax modifier goes up by 15%. Definitely a good thing once you start developing those English provinces. Secretaries of State, the king has always had a royal servant, and that royal servant gives us diplomatic relations plus 1, which means we can get more allies. Always good to see. Navigation Acts, trade efficiency plus 10%. As I said, England's all about that trade. English Bill of Rights, national unrest -1, and global tariffs plus 10%. Colonizing and unrest. Good to see. Reform of commission buying. We get a discipline plus 5% bonus. Always good to see. And the Sick and Hurt Board, ship durability plus 5%, with our final English ambition being leaders without upkeep. Definitely not the best of traditions to be had, but definitely not bad either. History. Now, English history is one of very differing choices. We start off, of course, as the smaller nation in most of Europe at this point: Castile, France, Hungary, Lithuania, Poland, Sweden, all much larger than England. But at the end of the historical campaign, England becomes Great Britain and has a global empire, with Newfoundland, the USA, most of India under its control, as well as eventually taking over Australia. However, the way to get there is most definitely difficult. As you can see, at the end of the campaign, they even still have less development than most of the European majors, but they do have the alliance chain of gods. Let us go through. Great Britain, or England as it begins, is not in the best of positions, the current issue being the War of the Roses. However, the 100-Year War is also quite bad, which means France will easily reclaim its provinces on the mainland, which it does. Eventually England starts succumbing to rebels, and eventually they manage to get their union over Scotland. The Anglo-Scottish War, as you can see. They do not vassalize them yet, but later on it does occur. France, of course, gains the Burgundian territories. The Netherlands has been formed. We see no changes in England until quite late in the game. We do have some colonizing happening in the next few years. However, they do not expand very far. England maintains its relationship with Portugal. Nothing changing too much. Another war with Scotland. No gains in that regard. Scotland starts getting its provinces back. France is most definitely in the middle of Europe. England is still very much a minor in the power play so far. You can see Queen Elizabeth has just taken power, and at the end of her life, the colonizing will begin, at least in this game. As we can see, Newfoundland has just been colonized by England, and that is where their power will come from. England has vassalized Scotland, and it is of course a union, because of course it was a united kingdom, not so much a united vassalization. England later on takes more of Ireland and more of a new world. Ireland does come apart, we have more rebels. We see later on though a full domination of the British Isles, England of course still colonizing, and that is pretty much most of English history. There of course are multiple more specific examples of English history, but in terms of what the game shows us, there is not too much to be seen. Of course we have England forming Great Britain around 1707, if I remembered correctly. I am correct, 1707 is when Great Britain is formed. This is just the diplomatic choice that you can later take. Of course the 13 colonies, we have Newfoundland, and that actually regards to the end of British colonization. Of course India is still being taken over, but other than that there's not much change from Great Britain of then and the Great Britain of the end of the campaign, with the exception of some development, which is mostly taken out of India. Of course they do control trade, and they do have one of the largest navies at the end of the game, but that was all for now. Tactics. And in game we are. Now we can see where our forts are. We've got one in Marseilles, we have one in London, and three in the French mainland. We have Calais, Normandy, and La Bourde. Now England has a few things that are very much in for itself. We have the English Parliament, in which you can start a debate which will give you a certain bonus for the next 10 years. If you manage to pass it, you get the votes, of course, via your parliaments. Let's go for the technology cost. And here we go, we have some seats. So we have to bribe them, if you want. 37 ducats, that is fine. What's this? Lose 5 army tradition, let's not try that. Grain inflation. That is relatively minor, but let's have a look what else. Mercantilism, something you really don't want to lose. Let's choose that. We have a chance to win of 75%, which is most definitely fine. That goes for every month, and that gives you the ability. Now, the current disaster is of course the War of the Roses. We can only stop this by having an heir, having a regency council, or being a lesser partner in a union. And if it does fire, we have available mercies plus 12.5%, good produced minus 10%, progress is 2.5 each month. Our ruling dynasty is not York. Stability is less than 1. Administrative skill is less than 2, 2 and 2 again, because of course we have a 000 king. Best way to do this is have an heir, which is easily done if you manage to ally, or more so get royal marriages with as many people as possible. Now if you were Sunni, of course that wouldn't be a problem, but we can't do that just now. In terms of what you can do as England, England has two main choices. You can either retreat into the Isles and focus on colonization, or you can take the iron and strike it when it's hot and try invading France. Now, you have one way of invading France, which is of course the personal union, which you can get as long as you have more provinces than France does. Now, if we go at the ledger, we can check our countries. Now we want to look at, of course they changed that, didn't they? Anyway, point is, what you need to have is more provinces than France, something I can assure you right now we do not have. Easiest way of doing this is usually taking out Ireland, or forcing your vassalization of Scotland, or just annexing. Of course this would mean you have to fight France anyhow, because they are guaranteed. So, say if we wanted to take out Ireland, or Brittany, because Brittany is of course also less than 100%. However, I can show you that later. Now, if you were to invade mainland Europe, you would want to try and control the English trade node as best as possible, meaning you would want to strike Holland, Antwerp, and Corks. I don't know how to say that. And of course the North Sea, which you will take from Scotland. Another idea is once you take Scotland, it is very much idea to attack Norway and invade the Scandinavian peninsula, gaining more land that way, and perhaps even taking Iceland, just for the extra colonial range. Other ideas that you could have, because England is one of the more expansive nations in terms of what you would want to do, because you can do anything to a reasonable extent. Other choices are, of course, invading Iberia, since you do have provinces next to them. Navarra, easy target, especially if you have no allies. This usually changes quite quickly, as France or Castile might vassalize them. However, Castile, if with the power of Portugal and Aragon, is quite an easy target to beat, if you so desire. Burgundy is one of the harder ones, but it is always a chance. Usually you start off with pretty good relations with many of the other majors. You can get Austria as an ally, Denmark as an ally, Castile not so much, Aragon sometimes, but in this one not. Poland has not much interest in you, but if you push it you can get an alliance of Poland. However, as you can see, you're in a very good spot. I have just annexed both Brittany and Scotland. This puts my province count higher than that of France, which gives me this mission: force union on France. France, governed by the ruler of England, you get 10 prestige, definitely not the greatest of prestige that you could get, but what can you say? Now, what you get from this mission is, of course, the casus belli for restoration of union. Obviously we have to take the capital of France, and we can form a union. Of course, it doesn't tell you, it does have full aggressive expansion, which you will see it can be quite troublesome. Now, I'll let this tick by, and we will use the win wars so that we don't actually have to fight this war, as currently that will be quite tricky. However, we just wait till the 15th. We will lose that battle quite spectacularly, but that is not the biggest issue right now. We lose the Battle of Natis, no big deal. We lose an accepted culture due to our vassalizations. However, at the 14th of December, we can sue for peace. Now, this casus belli gives you the union with France choice right here. It does give you a slight coalition. Very slightly. However, if you can deal with it for a few years, most of the people in the bottom row, that is of course Alsace, Austria, Baden, so on and so forth, will leave the coalition. So the best time to do this is, of course, the 29th of December. So we shall wait till then. This is of course not what would actually happen in game, as you would have base, aggressive expansion and so on. But if you need help in that regard, you can always use this trick. You take the land, it gets put into place on the 31st, and they instantly lose one tick of aggressive expansion. Now, a few things have happened. We suddenly have France in a union under us. This gives us extreme power, but of course we need to improve that relations. Austria now has 47 aggressive expansion, unlike the 50 they had earlier, which means they cannot join a coalition. So the only people that can join a coalition are France, but they can't. Denmark, not even close. Burgundy, 55. Burgundy can join. But other than Burgundy, you have no much issue with any other nations, especially none that are relatively large. So if you can deal with that, you are in a very good spot for the rest of the campaign. You've pretty much won the game at that point. However, of course, it's a lot harder than what I just showed you. Nevertheless, I might just wait for this to succeed. However, even so, you can guess what happens. Now, that was the personal union of France. In terms of other missions you can get, most of your missions will contain reconquesting cores on France and or conquesting the New World and India. You'll get missions to establish trade in India, which gives you a claim on all of the coast of India. So Vijayanagar would be a good choice, or Bengal, Orissa. Nations where you can take as much as possible with all the claims you have. Other missions, as I said, will be, of course, to discover the New World, establish colonies, and so on and so forth. You get a mission to vassalize Scotland during your playthrough as well. This has to do with the fact that Scotland needs to have less than it has to lose at least Ayrshire, and it has to have certain modifiers as well, which I can look up, or you can look up if you wish. However, England, as I said, is very much up to the player. You can invade Europe. You are England, or you can seek sites in the New World and make your colonial empire that way. I will say it's very hard to play historically accurately as England, due to the fact that historically they did not expand very far for a very, very long time. Achievements. Now then, as it seems with most nations, there are only very few achievements that can be done as England. In total, there are 2 that are specifically for England and 1 that you can easily do in the short term. Now, the 2 that are for England itself is an industrial revolution, which needs you to control all of Britain, which is of course Ireland, Scotland, and Orkney as well, as you can see in the Britain region. However, the islands of Shetland, so also Helgeland, Faroe, and all that stuff, those are part of Scandinavia, so you do not need to control them. However, Ireland is part of Britain, and as such you will have to control them. But firstly, you have to control the British Isles, and secondly, you have to have 25 development in every single province. So, say goodbye to your monarch points, folks, but, of course, that is all you need to do, so conquest will be little, your tech will be even less. The second one that is specifically aimed for England is One Night in Paris, which needs for you to control, own, and core Paris. And that's actually all that you need to do. And the last mission that you will have to take this last achievement will be the achievement Full House. Full House means that you have to have 3 vassals and 2 marches. Now, England is in a very good position for this, because you can form 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 vassals, which means if we wish to, we can say release him, release them, release Wales, Northumberland, and Meath. Now, that means we have, as you can see, 5 vassals. We need 2 of them to be marches. So, Meath, let's have a look. Where was this? Influence. Designate march? Yes. Cornwall, designate march? Yes. And there you have it. We have the Full House achievement. Already done and dusted. Perfect. So, that was that. Hope you enjoyed, and if you want me to review any other nations, please just mention them in the comments. I'm happy to do anything in Europe, anything in Asia, anything in the world. And the more specific the better, because I do not like doing the main majors, because they seem to be quite obvious. However, the minors such as Frankfurt are truly a bit too arbitrary. Something in the middle will be good. I'm being very specific, I'm also being very demanding, so I will sign off here. No, clergy, you may not.